When we heard news that Barnaby Joyce was quitting the Nationals, with a rumoured move to One Nation on the cards, we knew we'd cover it with our friend in Canberra, Amy Remeikis. But the more we talked about it, there was someone else we needed to hear from too.
Tony Windsor speaking.
Hello, Tony. It's Daniel James from 7am. Barnaby's old sparring partner and the former member for New England, Tony Windsor, was loading cattle when we called. And he said a move to One Nation would make perfect sense.
I'm very pleased for him that he's finally found his real home. The sort of old Western Queensland imprimatur will suit him with One Nation, I think. I think where Barnaby Joyce is going to have difficulty is explaining why he's doing it. Traditionally, he hasn't been a racist. And the very existence of One Nation is about racism and condemnation of various religious groups, etc. Find someone to pick on and blame them for all the problems. I just give
Joyce's decision to quit the Nationals comes after months of speculation and very public declarations of admiration from Pauline Hanson in the media, all culminating with a wagyu steak cooked on a sandwich press earlier this week. Tony Windsor, when was the last time someone cooked you a prime cut of wagyu at Parliament House?
Yeah, I couldn't get over that. To use wagyu steak, it was absolutely classic. And Joyce historically has always said that he was there to represent the people in the weatherboard and iron, the not so well off or the poor. And Hanson, of course, to represent those in the political process had bypassed, and anybody that hates anything, they could find a place to dwell there. And here they are eating the most expensive piece of meat that you can buy in her office. I couldn't get over the graphics of all of that.
If Joyce leaves the flailing Nationals for an ascended One Nation, is he trading another shot at power for a dose of publicity? Or will he be part of a new conservative force that will reshape the country? I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. Today, contributing editor for the New Daily, Amy Remeikis, on the ramifications of Barnaby bailing on the Nationals. It's Friday, November 28.
So after 30 years with the National Party, I'm resigning from the party. And that really leaves me with a heavy heart. And I apologise for all the hurt that will cause other people. I really do.
Amy, thanks for joining me. We've known this was coming, but can you lay out for us what reasons Barnaby Joyce gave for his defection?
He didn't really give a lot of concrete reasons. It's really just vibes, because Barnaby Joyce has got everything that he has wanted from the National Party and from the coalition more broadly. His main argument when he kicked all of this off about 5 weeks ago was that he really, really wanted them to scrap net zero.
The reason it is incredibly bad is because what it is doing to our nation, deindustrialising our nation, putting the poor into poverty, putting them out of their house, destroying farmland.
They have done that, not just the Nationals, but also the Liberal Party. And then it just became more of, he thinks they're not going far enough to fight for regional people, but he can't really give many concrete examples of what that means, because a lot of the rhetoric that we have heard from the coalition over the last couple of months has come straight from Barnaby's mouth. So really, this came down to the fact that Barnaby was feeling slighted, that Barnaby Joyce felt like his ascendancy back to the National Party leadership was completely cut off and over, which it is. So in the end, he just basically had a tantrum and quit.
And if we, look at his legacy with the Nationals, the decision by them to scrap net zero had Joyce's fingerprints all over it. Would that have happened without him?
No, it wouldn't have happened without him. But I think actual responsibility and the actual dirty fingerprints here belong to the Labor Party. Labor actually kind of set this all in train when they decided to put up Barnaby Joyce's private members' bill to scrap net zero up for debate, which is something that they did every single week that Parliament sat.
I present the Repeal Net Zero Bill 2025 and explanatory memorandum. I move that this bill be now read as...
It was with the intent of causing as much internal ruptures within the Liberal Party and the coalition more broadly as possible. They wanted to have as many coalition MPs as they could have the opportunity to stand up there and talk about why they did not agree with the coalition's policy.
President, well, I always stand by the comments of the Prime Minister, unlike some of those opposite who appear never to stand by the commitments of their leader. I mean, yesterday we had the amazing example of the coalition running out of the chamber so they didn't have to vote differently on the net zero motion.
Labor wanted this, they fostered it, they gave everybody the opportunity to create this situation, and Barnaby Joyce took a lot of glee in that. So he basically did what he does, which is wreck the place, but also try and claim that he's doing it for the sake of people. This is just the people speaking. And everybody who speaks like-minded within the coalition joined him. It became an untenable situation for Susan Lee to try and pretend that there wasn't a split to save her leadership for a few more months at least. She agreed to allow the vote, and here we are.
As you mentioned, Amy, Joyce is nothing if not wild, and he's seen the writing on the wall, especially with the Nationals calling for generational change within the parliamentary party. So do you think they will be celebrating his departure?
I've spoken to quite a few Nationals MPs, and they're in two minds about it. There is the point of view that maybe the party room becomes a little bit more settled now that David Littleproud isn't being directly challenged by Barnaby Joyce, but there are still people like Matt Canavan who are in the Nationals party who are very much in the Barnaby Joyce mould of Nationals politicians who are going to continue that line of pushback, I suppose.
Because support for net zero is dropping off a cliff. Okay. I mean, there was a poll just a couple of weeks ago that showed that net zero now has net zero support, which is a big turnaround in just a few months. And I think Barnaby's played a big role in that and pointing out the fact that this net zero promise we were made is not delivering. It's just not working for the Australian people because they've seen...
There are others who feel that Barnaby Joyce is going to cause more problems for the Nationals outside of the party because he has no reins anymore. He can say whatever he wants and in doing so drag the Nationals further to the right or further to his position just by sucking up that oxygen and saying, why are they not doing this? But then there are others who are just kind of like, see you later, this has been an absolute mess. The Nationals are losing relevancy in their communities, they are losing members, and Barnaby Joyce is a big reason for that. So they're hoping that maybe they get a bit of a fresh start, but I think looking at the situation, that might be a bit of a naive, hopeful view because the Nationals don't seem to be unhooking themselves from Barnaby's positions, despite the fact that he's no longer in the party.
Coming up, if Hanson's and Joyce's powers are combined, how potent a force could One Nation become? Amy, let's talk about Barnaby Joyce's values and his record. If you look at how he spent his political energy, what are the issues he really cares about and where does he naturally belong?
The issues that Barnaby Joyce really cares about is Barnaby Joyce. There's no real giant philosophy to Barnaby Joyce's political decisions. He has been against marriage equality, for the sanctity of marriage, despite what he was doing to his own marriage. He has been against privatisation and then he's voted for it. He has been for farmers' rights, but then he's put mining ahead of that. He has been for investment, but now he's against net zero. Barnaby Joyce doesn't really have a position, but he does have excellent rhetoric. He's an accountant who has donned an akubra and convinced everybody that he is a farmer. And he does a really good job of talking to people as if he is salt of the earth, the weatherboard and iron, that he's only ever talking about regional people and that he understands them. But he only reflects the views of the people who agree with him. So Barnaby represents Barnaby. And in that case, I mean, One Nation is probably an okay fit, especially if Pauline Hanson does retire. You know, she is not exactly young. She's tired. She doesn't come to a lot of the parliamentary sittings, and she's enjoying sort of a second career as a Conservative darling, speaking at Mar-a-Lago and CPAC conferences around the world. So he would enjoy One Nation if he could lead it, but Barnaby Joyce has always had other people around him who are competent enough to clean up the messes, to keep all of the other responsibilities of running a party going. He's not going to have that in One Nation. So it will be interesting to see if Barnaby Joyce can remain Barnaby Joyce if he does end up defecting to One Nation as expected, or even if he maintains enough relevancy as an independent.
I mean, let's talk about Barnaby, whether he can be Barnaby within One Nation.
Do we want him to be Barnaby?
It's a fair question. The same day he shared that now famous steak dinner with Pauline Hanson, Hanson had just been sanctioned for wearing a burqa in the Senate. Do you think Barnaby Joyce shares those kind of values?
I don't even know if they are values. I mean, is Barnaby Joyce Islamophobic? I don't actually think he's thought about it. I think he looks at things purely on the politics, and he would have rationalised that as a stunt that Pauline Hanson has to do to invigorate her base. Would Barnaby Joyce do something similar? I don't think so. He usually sticks his knives into his colleagues rather into marginalised communities. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to excuse it. So if he does end up joining One Nation, or indeed just cozies up to them and Pauline Hanson continues doing these sorts of stunts, he would just rationalise them. He certainly wouldn't stand against it.
Now, I think I'm stating the obvious here, Amy, but Pauline Hanson and Barnaby Joyce are two very big characters. Let's look into the future. How do you think they would actually go working together?
Well, I mean, they did manage to cook a wagyu steak on a sandwich press, so obviously they're a match made in heaven. I mean, my favourite thing about that photo op, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is that they made sure to put the sacks of salt, like the biggest sacks of salt container you have ever seen, front and centre in the photo.
As you would see on kitchen tables everywhere.
Yes. And both of them are very good at the visuals, very good at saying, we are just like you. They are both very wealthy people who are very influential, who rub shoulders with some of the most wealthy and elite people in Australia, and both have convinced a large section of the Australian public that they are just everyday, lower middle class, salt of the earth battlers. And so in that, you know, they share a lot of political, I suppose, skill and cunning. Pauline Hanson, though, does not have a good track record of working with other big personalities, Mark Latham being the most recent example of that. Barnaby Joyce has never been comfortable with sharing the spotlight. And while they both at the moment are enjoying the trouble that they're causing for the wider political scene, actually working together, that is going to be something that I think they both struggle with.
I mean, I guess it's easy to pass this off as another Barnaby moment, but it is actually a huge step. This is a man who was once, Deputy Prime Minister. As a member of the Nationals, he's been part of governing the coalition for many years. He's been in power. So is he ultimately giving up any ability to influence policy now?
I don't think he's giving up any ability to influence policy, because the Nationals have been influenced by One Nation for about 30 years now. It's one of the reasons the coalition as a whole has shifted further to the right, because the Nationals have had to shift further to the right to fight off One Nation. But Barnaby Joyce is giving up any chance of a legacy. And by that, I mean any chance of a legacy that seems sensible and impactful, because One Nation does stunts. One Nation has not been a mainstream party for the 30 or so years it has been in Australian politics. A lot of Barnaby's power has come from being in the mainstream. A lot of his regular TV spots, which is what has seen him elevated into the position that he is culturally in our politics, has has been because he is part of a mainstream party. He probably won't see the same amount of attention paid to him now that he's sitting outside the tent. He'll be brought in from time to time whenever they need, a dose of Barnaby to liven things up. But that's the same way that we see Pauline Hanson used. So he may have actually dealt himself out of some of that relevancy.
And finally, Amy, we know One Nation is already shaping up as a political force in federal politics, but how much bigger could they become if Joyce actually ends up joining them? Is there a chance for growth?
I'm not sure that Joyce would appeal to any more people who are currently not already attracted to One Nation. So I don't think you're going to see too much change there. Barnaby Joyce was held back from travelling in the last election, and that is because Barnaby Joyce, outside of some of those core electorates, we're talking like Hinkler in Queensland, his own of New England, some in the mid-north coast, that sort of area. Outside of those electorates, he is a net negative. He was seen as bringing down the vote. He does not appeal to women. He does not appeal to younger voters. He does not appeal to anyone who believes in renewable energy as a transition source. There's a lot of negatives that come with Barnaby Joyce. So I think that under Pauline Hanson, we'll see One Nation continue to hold that kind of high watermark. But we're also 2 years out from the next election. For Labor, year 2 of a parliament cycle is usually where they do a lot of their action. They just got through the environment laws. They're starting to ride a little bit higher in the polls themselves, and Anthony Albanese is certainly doing much better against Susan Lee as preferred Prime Minister. There's a lot of time for Barnaby Joyce to tank, and so there's a lot of time for One Nation to tank with him.
Well, we'll get the popcorn out and see what happens, Amy. Thank you so much for your time.
We all enjoy a little treat at the end of a long parliamentary year.
Also in the news, Labor has passed its environmental laws with support from the Greens. The Greens secured some amendments in return for their support, having high-risk land clearing and regional forest agreements added to federal laws, rather than being handled by the states. Coal and gas projects will also need federal approval for water use and won't be able to be fast-tracked. We'll have a full report on the new laws tomorrow. And Australia is not projected to meet its 2030 climate target or its 2035 climate target. Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen delivered the news in his annual climate statement to Parliament, but defended the government, saying it's normal for there to be a gap between targets and emissions, and that new policies will be implemented to improve the result. Australia recently committed to cut emissions by between 62 and 70% by 2035. The outlook projects emissions will likely fall by just 48%. I'm Daniel James. This is 7am. See you tomorrow.